Hello, everyone. It is so nice to be here with you, Netroots Nation. My name is Davida E. Arnold. You can call me V, and I am thrilled to be here with y'all. I am the new communications director at AAF, and I think it is only fair that we kick off the day with a little WAP. Who's going to bring it in? Ben Shapiro? Let's do it.
Here are some of the lyrics. You ready? Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house.
Ben Shapiro.
The future. This is literally Davida's third day at AAF, and we are so excited to have you on. Hello.
I am thrilled to be here. I am unthrilled at Ben Shapiro, though.
No, it is so wild. I just figured I love kicking off Netroots with the morning dump, and this year and last year we started this new way of doing stuff, and that is that AAF, my organization, has been leading the charge and talking about the day's news and weaving into and giving progressives a little bit of self-love and a little bit of encouragement to center abortion more and realizing why abortion and bodily autonomy is integral to all of your activism. So what we're doing this year, which is super fun, is we have the three hosts of the AAF podcast called the Feminist Sleeper Cell, taking you through every morning with some super cool guests and talking about what's happening in the news. So joining me, from last year's Netroots Nation, Moji Alawodel. Hey, Moj.
Hey.
So excited to be here. And a new person I'm introducing you to who I'm super excited about, Marie Khan. Hey, Marie.
Oh, hi.
So we've been kind of laughing about Ben Shapiro. In this, and like the internet has gone wild, and I just love the fact that the phrase DAP, dry ass pussy, has been coined in honor of Ben Shapiro talking about any and all pussy related things. And my whores in the house for this have been laughing about it. My favorite part of the clip is the end when he goes, and some such things like this.
Oh. I'm like, I guess he knows his audience. Like, did he really have to read all of the lyrics?
You know,
like, I don't want him narrating a children's book, let alone that. Like, no.
It feels so much like anytime you hear moral outrage from, like, all of the people who are like the culture warriors who are like, I had to watch this pornographic video 17 times so I really could understand how offended I would be. And then I had to do research on other pornographic videos. And then I went to a gay club and explored something called the glory hole. And when I put my penis through that, I found out time and time again how offended I was. And every time a man whacked lips on my cock, I realized Jesus was not appreciating this, but I wanted to make sure. It's so
exactly what his reading is. Exactly. Like, oh, you could have just ignored it, and the rest of us are really busy appreciating it. You didn't have to say anything, but instead you had to give us your dry ass reading of a wet ass song.
Yeah. Mind your business. That's all you need to do.
I know. I was trying to think, like, first of all, Ben Shapiro, he's always just coming when not called for. But, like, I was trying to think of, like, who would be worse than Ben Shapiro to give us an interpretive reading. By the way, he had to say for his people, P word, which is female genitalia, or just genitalia. There's many P words that are men, so Ben. But who would you think would be even more cringeworthy to read that?
George W. Bush, for sure.
Yeah, that's bad. Clarence Thomas might be terrible. Rush Limbaugh for sure would be terrible.
Oh. He'd have to take pill breaks during it. Like, he'd get too hot and bothered, and you just have to grab the medication he needs.
Well, didn't he get busted smuggling Viagra in from, like years ago, Rush Limbaugh had to smuggle Viagra in from the Dominican Republic, I think, which made me laugh because it was like, did every doctor in America say, I don't want you to have an erection. You're going to have to go overseas if you want a chemically induced erection, sir. Also, so yeah, it is so good. But it is Netroots Nation last year, we had so much fun. Normally on this Thursday morning, we have a gathering of people with coffee. People are hungover from coming in Wednesday night, just getting together and seeing all their amazing friends, and then joining us with eyes glued together with crust and the faint smell of vodka. So we're happy you're here. We're happy here this morning. Hi, everybody. It's so good. And there's a lot to talk about. It's great. And I feel great that we're doing Netroots Nation the week that Joe Biden has chosen his vice presidential pick, Kamala Harris. And Ben Shapiro, again, weighing in on that hot take from Ben Shapiro on Twitter. We'll throw that up in the screen for you if you didn't see it. It was mind-blowingly amazing. Let's see if we can pop that up on the screen. Here it comes. And I love, it's so great. Kamala Harris is an authoritarian, willing to use the power of government to do nearly anything. She's an opportunist, willing to say anything or attack anyone to get ahead. She is a radical in politics, mirroring hard left social and economic priorities. For those who actually are considering voting for the Biden-Harris ticket, I don't think people are actually thinking that. And by the way, the name Biden-Harris to me just sounds like a person that Tucker Carlson smoked weed with when he was at private school. Like where's Tucker? He's with Biden-Harris at the boathouse smoking some weed. Like, that's what it sounds like.
I feel like when I read that, I was like, if you just changed left to right, he is absolutely nailing Donald Trump. So it was wild that that's what he thought Kamala Harris was. Like,
yeah.
No, that's not at all who she is.
I know. Well, it's funny because I was looking at it and I was like, of all of the things, the right is very confused, and people are trying to define who she is, and so I heard some new things that I didn't know, and so just adding all of her like historic firsts, being a Black woman, a Tamil Indian woman, but as vice president, I think we should add career prosecuting Trotskyite moderate into a thing.
Aggressive moderate.
She's a radical moderate.
Aggressive moderate. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think
moderate.
Yeah, I think Ben Shapiro is paying attention to the wrong Black women.
I mean, I think it's so interesting. But we look at it. It's it's a great day to have a Black woman on this, and it's incredible. But I think it's super important as we talk about this to understand the many nuances of what happens. It's like we live in a country that is on fire, and we want to make change. Also, I think it's important that we make space for those who have legitimate concerns and questions around Kamala Harris's record. And to me, the really question is, how are we going to hold her accountable? How are we going to honor those voices and move forward? So let's start with some good stuff. Moji, what are you excited about when it comes to Kamala Harris?
I'm excited to just see, a multiracial brown woman on the ticket. I think she identifies as Black. So in May, she proposed that there be a litmus test. Let me get a little bit more of my facts here so I don't sound like a crazy person. She proposed an amendment, and in that amendment, she asked that places that have a history of not proposing good faith abortion rules, basically your Tennessees, your Alabamas, similar to the Voting Rights Act, are required to have their new laws run through the Justice Department so that they can't just willy-nilly propose all these wild laws that we see have been coming down the pipe for the last decade plus.
You know, that's super important, because just yesterday, Mike Braun, who is an Indiana senator, just put out some bullshit statement that abortion is not health care, and that any insurance company that is trying to offer abortion, there needs to be a side policy, and you have to pay extra, and it was like a whole thing. So I think that's
doing that for a couple months. I feel
What?
like something was just thrown out in June that was also trying to make abortion a side policy on the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, that's been happening since the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. I really love this because we all know that last year, about 12 months ago, Joe Biden was a supporter of the Hyde Amendment. And so it's really exciting that she's sort of drawing him a lot more leftward with abortion, like, no, it's an essential right.
And holding it accountable. And I'm excited because tomorrow we're going to actually be really drilling down on what that means. The Hyde Amendment and the Helms Amendment, which is the international version of the Hyde Amendment. And we have Morgan Hopkins from All Above All and Renee Bracey Sherman coming on to talk about that specifically in our guest block, so we can really drill down on what Hyde means, what it means to have a very strong Catholic with beliefs, even though they may vote pro-choice, you know, asking the question, you know, is it enough to simply be pro-choice, or do you have to be actively abortion positive, pro-abortion, to make sure that abortion is normalized and that our laws are actually expanding access? So that's going to be a great conversation that we have tomorrow. Maria, I know you have been anxiously waiting and having a lot of trepidation around this nomination. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that as well.
I think for there's so many other folks that are that I would really, really be concerned and problematic. It's like, who's Biden going to try to sniff the hair of? Is he gonna, was he going to get a Tulsi Gabbard and do like a Sarah Palin kind? Like, it's just terrifying. So I think based on other folks that the Democratic Party could have put forward, Kamala Harris is amazingly qualified. Her background, what she brings, her own personal life experiences. And yes, having a Black woman, multicultural, multi-ethnic background, that's amazing. But I think we need to acknowledge and think about what she has done through her tenure in California that's problematic. She closed down, as recently as 2018, she actually voted in support of a bill, the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act, and a Senate bill, the Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act. And that has actually proved to be really caustic towards sex worker communities who are trying to protect themselves, make a fair wage, make a fair living, have other workplace protections in place, because it's reduced the ability to vet the clients that they interact with, to advertise. So it's really, so things that Kamala Harris has worked towards have really proved problematic for that community. And that's an ongoing issue and concern. She's also been on the wrong side in terms of California Department of Corrections policies on trans affirming healthcare for inmates. She has overseen a state, and she's referred to herself as a top cop while she was in that role in California, as someone who has jurisdiction over ICE detention centers, other facilities where those authorities in charge decide what your gender is and where you're going to go. So she has faced really, really concrete, valid, nuanced criticism from trans communities, trans advocates saying, hey, you're saying all these things, you're doing all these things, you are in favor of gay marriage, all of that's wonderful. But when you drill down and look at those certain pocketed, especially marginalized, under-resourced, under-services communities that need you to step up as someone in a role, especially with prosecutorial power. Sorry, we got a storm out here. Just to emphasize my point, like, these are things we still need to pay attention to, and we need to hold her feet to the fire, Biden's feet to the fire, and say, hey, these are your records on things in the past. We see those. Now show us how you're changing. Show us how, because we can change, we can evolve. We all need to do this.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And I think we're going to move on to the next topic, but I think just in saying that, it's been interesting to see, I've seen 3 different trans advocates who have challenged her, Liz Lenz, and you know, people who have actually, they weren't beating around the bush and they said, this is terrible. And so she's willing to listen. She seems willing to be called in. I think that when you have had sort of these lanes of sort of definitive things that seem scary for marginalized people, that it's going to take time, and it's going to, again, it can't just be lip service. It's going to have to be proactive. And I think it's going to be up to folks like me, white activists especially, to hold accountable and say this matters, and not leave it up to the very marginalized folks to be leading the charge on fixing stuff. So white folks out there, we're the ones that are really going to have to do that. So I'm up for the fight. I think we are too at Netroots Nation. We're going to get to our guest, and I love our guest today, and because I don't know how much of the progressive community understands that when COVID hit, it was the first thing that so many conservative governors did in COVID is to use it as a cudgel to try to say that abortion care is an essential care, literally saying we're going to put abortion services on pause during the pandemic, like your belly button, I guess, is a pause button to these idiots, and making it incredibly difficult for folks to access abortion. And that was something that was really, really terrifying. And as activists in our abortion space, take the pandemic out of the equation, it is really, really, really hard to access care, basically everywhere but Oregon, and even in Oregon. But like, it's really tough. And so when you have places who are, and states who have been totally garbage on using the pandemic, forcing clinics to have to cut hours. What happens when abortion care workers are exposed? How dare you say they're not frontline people? People still need abortions during a pandemic. And when you have states who, like, physicians have to fly in. Why do we even have to have physicians doing early abortion? Why can't LPNs do it? Why can't medical assistants do it? You know, why can't the abortion medication be available at your pharmacy or through the mail? You know, all these things that have been massive barriers have been really hit hard. And so I'm really excited to turn it over to you, Marie, to introduce our incredible guest and talk about all these issues and what funding abortion on practical support looks like and how people can help.
Yes. So we are so excited to have Diana Parker joining us. She's the Executive Director of Midwest Access Coalition, which is a practical support abortion organization. There are only a handful of these types of orgs in the United States, and MAC is one that supported folks seeking safe abortion care since 2015. So Diana, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and with you.
I know that MAC is, and full disclosure, I have also been fortunate to volunteer with MAC since 2016. So I'm especially excited to have Diana on to talk. Now MAC, I know, is specifically situated in Chicago, but has a wide swath in the folks and the spaces that it supports. So can you, Diana, give a brief overview to our viewers and watchers about what practical support actually is, the geographic area that MAC supports, and how this type of organization is different from the more commonly known about abortion funds?
Yeah, so individually, practical support means having the resources emotionally, financially to plan a last-minute trip specifically for abortion care. And politically, I think practical support is effectively the last firewall between anti-choice restrictions and a person's ability to access abortion care in this country. I work from a reproductive justice framework, and I think everybody in abortion access should be working from this framework. And one of the biggest pieces for RJ is access. And while we put a lot of resources and energy in legislation, changing culture, legislation, and that's super important, and we're a part of those movements as well, what gets put to the side is access. Like, who has access in this country? Because while Roe is still law of the land, the federal government has rolled out the red carpet for anti-choice legislators to make abortion effectively impossible to happen in their states, make it impossible with trap laws. Physicians can't get admitting privileges that are useless and aren't actually in the clients or the patients for their well-being. And so Practical Support Funds is trying to fill that gap where folks don't have access in their own states. Most of our clients go to an abortion clinic that is not in their state. Most of them don't have living wages. Most of them are already parents and have so many other things to worry about. And so our model is basically making sure that they have someone with them the entire time. I sort of call it an accompaniment model, where they can talk about the barriers that they're seeing, and we work together to overcome them, whether that's making sure that they can pay for childcare, they can pay for food, they have a place to stay because they often have to travel overnight. So it's a lot. And it's something that I think more and more people are realizing is like really important to lift up and fund.
Yeah, I think you especially mentioning trap laws, the targeted restrictions on abortion access. So for folks that don't know, some states like Ohio have laws that say you need a mandatory ultrasound. So that means that Diana and other folks at MAC will support getting someone there transportation-wise, lodging to get to the clinic they need in Ohio. Then that person gets that ultrasound that they have to pay for, and then they gotta wait to actually have the abortion. So that means more time away from family, babysitting funds needed, an extra night at a hotel needed, gas money back and forth. So those types of things, like you mentioned, Diana, they're like the last firewall there that people aren't thinking about, especially for communities that don't have PTO, that don't have vacation hours, that can't just leave their job. And these are those same communities that are experiencing other types of acute disenfranchisement and lack of resources.
Right, and it's especially like even getting the infrastructure that we have in this country is pretty dismal. Like we rely so much on trains and buses, and that was especially clear during COVID when even that stuff shut down, and it was like, okay, what do we do now? When people are driving even, it's like, oh, my car broke down because we've been traveling 300 miles, what do we do now? And it's sort of that makes me realize like the need for MAC and organizations like us to be able to provide sort of a 24/7 hotline to make sure that people are supported wherever they're at. Yeah, and I do want to point out that Marie is one of those people, and she's actually on call right now, and I'm seeing the messages come in that she's trying to double duty right now. Yeah.
Which states or jurisdictions does MAC support for folks that are curious about?
Yeah, so we define the Midwest the way Wikipedia does, and I
have a lot of questions about that we'll talk offline.
But yeah, it's the Dakotas, Nebraska, Minnesota, Missouri, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan. But we also support people who are traveling to the Midwest, and that often includes states like Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma. And during COVID, we supported a lot of folks from Louisiana and Texas, where their governor and their AGs were like, actually, it's not essential. Well, maybe it is. And then, yeah, so like that our reach is it's getting pretty expansive.
That's amazing. That's great. That's great to know that there are folks that are able to step up and support, and especially from an RJ structure model understanding. I wanted to also talk a little bit about you, because I'm assuming you didn't just wake up one day and decide you wanted to support safe, legal, equitable abortion access. Can you talk a little bit about your own personal background, both in reproductive justice, and what kind of was your entry point into MAC, and if you have other areas of intersexual involvement and engagement? Like I know personally you have background in dueling, for example. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I guess I'll start with how I came into MAC. So one of the founders, Leah Greenbloom, we had a mutual friend, and I guess we both had talked to this friend about, well, why don't we open up our homes to folks that are coming to Chicago more and more for abortion care? And MAC was born, and I came on in 2016, which was probably a couple years after its founding, a year after it started seeing people, and it was actually the same time Marie Kahn came on. And so we sort of came on and developed this accompaniment model over the years together, and we're still doing it. And so I've been coordinating since 2016. I moved into the ED role now, so I don't do it as much. But that's sort of been my background with abortion access. And before that, I had been a birth doula. I had been with Chicago Volunteer Doulas, which is a great organization here, also an RJ organization. And I just sort of plugged in whenever I felt that there were gaps in access to equitable healthcare.
That's amazing.
I couldn't remember the rest of your question, sorry.
You answered the whole thing. You did.
I know, like that was a really good, I didn't remember.
And also like personally, I knew that I had a sister that, I mean, I was very young, I was 5, but I had a sister that got an abortion. She was alone, she had gone to Indiana. I'm not sure about the circumstances, but she ended up passing away from it the next night. And so I've always thought about like wanting to make sure that someone always has someone with them, listening to them, talking it through with them, whether it's like a joyous process for them or not, but making sure that people aren't alone.
Thank you for sharing that.
In talking to Marie and listening to you speak, you have a personal history rich in mutual engagement and community-centered support and respect. We at AAF have been through COVID crisis, working even before, but especially then, working on a mutual aid project and really supporting clinics in the things that they need. And how do you see mutual aid fitting into the abortion access world and the efforts by organizations to support patients trying to access care?
Yeah, so I forgot a piece of what MAC does before COVID. We have a big volunteer base of volunteers who open up their homes and also drive clients to and from their appointments, provide emotional companionship, sometimes physical companionship too. And so I think of that as mutual aid, being there, providing not necessarily the medical part of the process, but like, are you well fed? Do you need to talk? Are your children taken care of right now? What else is it that you need? We usually try to provide a comprehensive program. And so I do a lot of mutual aid in my community, where we have a Food Not Bombs chapter, and we make sure that we have food to distribute during this crisis. And I'm also a street medic, so I've been at some protests that started during my first week as ED. And so I was just like, I'm sorry, Mac, I'm gonna be offline doing this stuff right now because uprisings are happening and I need to be out there a bit. And then I sort of stepped back as I realized, need to focus more on Mac a little bit. And so, I think in order, like, RJ is also about being able to raise your families in safe and nurturing environments. And like, you can't, for many people, there are no safe and nurturing environments, especially in Chicago, we're very segregated. And so I'm part of those movements to push back against that, against our local governments and the culture around police violence and access to healthcare and safety. Yeah,
and I think that's so important for folks to really, because we don't have conversations around, all pregnancy outcomes, and why it's super important that we honor all of them. And whether that is you are somebody who wants to carry a child to term and you need resources, or whether that you want an abortion. And the part that I love so much is hearing about the work that you do from the practical side of making sure someone can access that care, and also is getting the respect that they deserve. And one of the things that we do at AAF is we like to take our mutual aid also to the providers of the care. I think one of the reasons that we started the organization was that in the landscape of where we look at where support is needed, abortion care providers, independent clinics in particular, which is what our focus is, we're not getting community support. It was hard to practice. The majority of people that work and provide abortion, from the front desk to the physicians to the nurses, are Black and brown people. And so in our support and our mission to say we want to make sure that we are making sure that happens, our mutual aid program really is centering around how is it that you can help clinics, the people that work there. How can we make sure that the clinics themselves have new heating pad covers, that the workers can get extra money for childcare if they have to stay late. We did a big fundraiser because when you are working on the front lines in a clinic, you may need to take time off, you may get furloughed. We want to make sure those folks are taken care of. And so mutual aid for the whole community is super important. So I feel so excited to work side by side with abortion funds, with Middlesex Coalition as Practical Fund, and doing mutual aid for the clinic. So it makes me feel really excited and hopeful that we're having this conversation and that so many people are really understanding the totality of what that community looks like. And I wanted to ask you to that end, Diana, like, what gives you hope? What makes you feel hopeful going forward?
I think it's all the people that I've built relationships over the years. All the people in other practical support funds are really motivated. We are mostly volunteer led, and all our volunteers have been around for quite some time, and they're really dedicated to the cause. And they're all they come from various backgrounds, and they have different perspectives, and they bring a lot to the movement. Also, my relationships with the clinics. MAC has pretty close relationships with the folks that we partner with, that go to the clinics that have become hubs in the Midwest, like Hope Clinic. That we're very close with them, making sure that they get what they need, their staff is doing all right, and just like talking to them about what they're seeing and what they need. It's really, there are a lot of people that are doing a lot of work right now, and I'm very hopeful about the future, despite the present. There are a lot of great skilled people out there.
And tell folks how they can get involved.
Well, we have a website. We're mostly active on our social media though, like our Facebook. And yeah, you could go there and look at the things that we're doing, become a monthly donor. Donations are really important right now. Abortion is hard to fund. People don't like to afford or to fund abortion care. So money is really important right now.
And do you need also bodies, people to help drive, people to provide all kinds of other care?
Yeah, right now our hosting program is on hold because of COVID. We want to make sure that our volunteers and our clients are safe, but we have restarted our driver program. So if you're in the Chicago area or the Minneapolis area, we have programs that are there. We're going to eventually start driving programs in Missouri and Michigan as well. That's not going to happen this year, but it's on the horizon. So if you have a car and you're willing and able, that would be great. And also just like read about RJ, read about reproductive justice, and talk to your networks about it. It's really about, we need to change the culture, talking about abortion in order to change the way our systems work. Yeah.
That is awesome. Well, I love that you came on. Thank you so much for talking with us and talking about how great your work is. Everybody go to the website, figure out ways you can support. It is incredible. Thank you so much, Diana, for joining us.
Thank you. Have fun.
Thank you. After hearing that, we're really excited. We are launching a petition, y'all, because after hearing how much funds are needed, you are not going to believe the garbage that has happened in funding, so like Corona funding. So with PPP and small businesses being funded, one of the things that I don't think that gets talked about enough is how PPE came to be, right? It really wasn't about saving small businesses. It was about keeping employees on. And so as we watched, you know, the Lakers and Shake Shack and all these people get money, it was the companies that had more employees, I think up to 500 employees qualified, were prioritized in getting this money, which was massively frustrating. Many clinics that provide abortion care were totally denied. Planned Parenthood was given money and then forced to give back $60 million of the money because they provide abortion. And then many Black and brown owned businesses were just shut out of the process completely. But here is what is the disgusting, maddening rub in PPE. So having said that, even in their garbage setup of the money going to keeping people employed, and therefore companies that had more employees were getting the money, organizations that got the money who have very few employees and got millions of dollars were fake abortion clinics that have been set up by religious organizations. Some have big, giant umbrella organizations with which they give money to these smaller things. People dress up like doctors. They are not schooled. They have an ultrasound machine, and they're designed 100% to lure vulnerable pregnant people in, thinking that they're going to be able to receive comprehensive pregnancy care, whether that's abortion, whether that's OBGYN care throughout their pregnancy, whether that's diapers, whether that's whatever. And they don't provide any comprehensive care. They provide lies and misinformation around abortion. Wow. They have received what looks like to be millions of dollars in PPP money, and we have a petition going because the likes of Josh Hawley, who is the right-wing extremist out of Missouri, Virginia Fox out of Tennessee, and a bunch of other senators and congresspeople have really pushed this forward. So we have a petition we're going to put in the chat for you to sign. We'll also be talking about it at our booth time, which is at 1 p.m. Friday tomorrow. More about what that means. We are asking Congress to tell these people they need to give the money back. If you're going to force Planned Parenthood to give the money back, then people who provide zero care should not be getting the money. And they're so problematic in so many ways. Moji, Marie, I just wanted both of you to like talk about and highlight just exactly what trash ass other things these fake clinics are all about. And I know, Moji, your panties are in a wad about one in particular.
No, I got it a whole big bunch. I mean, fake clinics in general are terrifying to me. This idea that you could put on a lab coat and give non-medical advice is terrifying and ethically, it's not even vague, it's wrong. But there are two really huge chains, and one in particular, Obria, which we did a counter protest against them last year because they had this really creepy app. It was a period tracker, but it gave sort of non-advice, and it also tracked your information, and it was just really uncomfortable and icky. But they received, Obria, they've also received federal monies. They're one of the organizations, the non-medical organizations that's getting some of the Title X money right now. But they were approved for about $350,000 in PPP loans. And that's terrible on its own, but one of the founders or CEOs, is a white supremacist, or at least has been gone on record espousing white supremacist theories and talking points. They said in 2015 that abortion threatens our culture's survival. And then she went into this replacement theory, which is this white supremacist idea that Black and brown people are replacing white people with abortion, and that Christianity is dying because of it, and Muslims are taking over. And this is not an uncommon thing, but it's just terrifying that this person's lying organization got lots of federal money during the middle of one of our hugest crises.
Wow. It is, it's astounding to me that these, again, we talk about fake clinics constantly within our movement, and I think the larger, greater progressive movement does not understand the pervasive nature of them. Just to give you an idea, there's about 780 clinics that provide abortion around the country, and we've identified over 4,000 of these fake clinics, with 2 of them, Heartbeat International and Obria, who Moji was talking about, are these giant umbrella groups, and a lot of them have like 1 employee or 0 employees, and they also have these creepy vans. They have vans that they call mobile pregnancy testing units, and they will pull up places and ask people to get in the van and get an ultrasound. Is there anything creepier than a stranger saying, come in and let me give you an ultrasound in my van?
Also, why would you get an ultrasound from someone who's not a doctor or who's not a registered technician? Because they also give out misinformation with their ultrasounds.
But you don't know that. That's the whole thing. When you prey on vulnerable people, if you think about it, so many of the clientele that they're aiming for are people who have never experienced pregnancy in any way, shape, or form, are experiencing pregnancy in a time that is makes them feel vulnerable, insecure, and also they are people who have never had any experience in navigating the healthcare system. Therefore, they don't know what questions to ask. They don't know what's real. You know, you're pregnant and scared and vulnerable, and you're like gonna call a place that says free testing, and you're gonna say like, will your doctor help me with my baby? Like, I'm scared and I need an abortion. And they'll be like, why don't you come in and talk to us about that? And so then you're like, oh, okay, you actually are gonna invite me in and it's free? Yes, I'm gonna go there. And then all of a sudden they start telling you all kinds of crazy shit that I know Marie is gonna like go hard right now on the crazy shit that they're gonna talk about with abortion reversal. Marie, tell them about abortion reversal.
Heartbeat International, that particular grouping that you mentioned, Liz. So think about the name first off, international. So this is a community raising money, going especially to Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, but not to say that they're not going to go to other colonized spaces. So they're there to tell communities, don't use condoms. Children are a blessing from God, and it's this particular God, of course, that they're concerned with. So they're taking donations, they're going over there and doing that. They are not providing, they're not helping supporting reproductive care, sex positive care in the US. They're doing the same thing overseas. And one of their little pet projects that they have going is this abortion pill reversal hotline. So in the United States, right now, even though the Food and Drug Administration really, really tries to limit access, folks that are 10 weeks pregnant or less normally, if they can get to a clinic, can get an abortion pill, the abortion pill regimen prescribed to them. Now, the antis have taken it upon themselves to decide through fake science, through one unsupported, actually really damaging study to the individuals involved, that, hey, we can pump you up full of hormones if you've taken the first pill, and that's going to reverse your abortion. So they have this hotline that you can call into, based in the US, actually based out of Ohio, and you can say, hey, I took the pill, what do I do? We actually had a colleague within AAF that called. We put this on the Feminist Sleeper Cell a couple months ago. It's crazy. It's just like how Liz mentioned it. This is not someone with medical information. You're talking to them and they're like, oh, hey, give me all your personal information. Let me connect you with one of our physicians that's near you, and we'll figure out how to reverse this abortion. It's not centering the person pregnant. It's not actually explaining to them that this is not a medically accurate process at all. Other doctors and physicians have gone on to have rigorous scientific tests that have found, hey, that's actually really damaging to the person pregnant. It doesn't work. But this is a lie that antis put forward, and they put it through their harassment of folks visiting abortion clinics. They'll shout this at you as you're going into a clinic, that, hey, you can reverse your abortion. And it's something that fake clinics tell folks as well. So as Liz mentioned, as Moji talked about, you're someone vulnerable, you're trying to figure out what to do. You go to a clinic that you think is real, that's actually a fake clinic. And we've seen this in the Midwest, especially within folks contacting Midwest Access Coalition, where they went to a fake clinic. They were told, hey, you're 8 weeks pregnant, so you can still have an abortion if you want, but we're gonna sit you down and give you a bunch of literature and precious moments figurines all over the place. Like, literally imagine this. It's a very Christian, it's often a very Catholic environment, from a very, very narrow, non-progressive viewpoint. And then that person turns around, and this has happened in several situations, they've got an abortion appointment scheduled, they contact MAC, they find out once they're there, hey, I'm 15 weeks, I'm 20 weeks, I cannot use the pill anymore, I cannot be in the state I'm in and seek abortion care, I've got to leave now. So that's something fake clinics do. They will lie to you about where you're at in your pregnancy to try to pigeonhole you into the only option of giving birth, because they know how expensive abortions are. They know where clinics are located. They know how effective their harassment is on individuals. And that's something we have to combat, that we all have to, everyone on this feed should be thinking about this and thinking about
we shouldn't be funding them with PPP money. And also just to make Marie's point, just to kind of hammer it home, the AMA has never weighed in any oddly in any of these abortion laws at all that have been just unbelievably egregious. They joined a lawsuit because there are almost a dozen states in the United States that have on the books that doctors or counselors have to let a patient know that abortion reversal is an option. And the AMA signed on to a lawsuit with the state of North Dakota to say, this is just unacceptable. There is no peer-reviewed science. There is one creepy study. If you pump up a pregnant person with a bunch of progesterone and hope that all of a sudden that's going to reverse the first part of the abortion, it can do damage. So it's really unbelievable. And so it's super important to sign this petition because, for God's sake, if you are a small business or you know anybody who is suffering right now and needs that money, the fact that places like this are getting your tax dollars and are getting money that should be going to small businesses that are actually doing business, like, let's do that. So we got to wrap up because this is going so fast. We want to take a couple of questions if you have questions. And if you do, let's see if we have any questions. I don't know how we're looking at them. I guess they'll be in the Q&A. And if they're not in the Q&A, while you're loading up the questions, let's do 6 degrees of abortion. So on our podcast, we close out our podcast every week where Marie and Moji, because I'm a big abortion know-it-all, Marie and Moji pick a news story that's unrelated to abortion, and I have 6 chances to make the link from that news story to abortion. I'm super proud of my record. I'm about 95%, I'm pretty sure. So while you guys are loading in your questions and we get to the questions, Marie, Moji, what is the story that I have to tie to abortion this week?
Okay, so this one is a bit of a long shot, but we're gonna go for it. This morning I was reading an article and it was about fast food chains that no longer exist. So it had iconic ones like New York ones, which I don't know if anyone else knows, but like Beefsteak Charlie's, which I never went to, but I totally remember the signs. And then other ones I'd never heard of, like White Towers, which I have never heard of.
I know, I'm like, I don't know if I want to visit that White Tower.
I'm sure I don't want to visit.
Is it a Tolkien theme?
No. But the one that struck me, this was one that was called Burger Queen. And it opened in Florida in 1959, and it had franchises in Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, and then I think was rebranded as Druthers in like 89. So having never heard of Burger Queen before, but knowing fast food, will you link it to abortion?
Yes, I will. So sadly, fast food has a long history of anti-abortion extremism. You can look at when Tom Monahan owned Domino's Pizza, they funded a whole bunch of anti-abortion activism where if it was the 1980s, you were boycotting Domino's Pizza. Also, Wendy's, Dave Thomas, also actively, and when his daughter took over, actively supporting the anti-abortion movement and I believe actively supporting fake clinics. So I gave you 2 and I did it in 1 degree. Thank you though. I appreciate you trying.
I still have more days. We have more days. We're still working on it.
I know. It's really hard to like, this is just how I am dedicated to our abortion work and life. I just can tie it to almost anything. And I think that is actually the reason that we do this segment is kind of that is the point. As we look at our activism and as we're looking at like what we're doing and what we believe, all of these things are intersectional. I'm very excited. about tomorrow and talking about Hyde and Helms and Medicare reform and tying those things together. And then Saturday in our conversation, we're going to be talking about terrifying leadership within the anti-abortion movement and how their intersectional hatred, we really need to come together. Those of you working and prioritizing the different movement areas that you work in, why it's important that you team up with AAF and other abortion health rights and justice activists so that we can expose some of these people, because it is sometimes it's very surprising to some of our folks working in other fields to know how influential some of these anti-abortion folks are in the areas of LGBTQ, Muslim rights, anti-Blackness, anti-immigrant stuff. And so we really want to drill down and get some conversations going with some folks at Netroots to really join us. So what a great, no questions today, but hopefully you'll have questions next time. We're going to wrap it up, but I just want to say thank you for joining us. We love being at Netroots. And look, there are some things that you can do if you are caring about us. Just remember, sign that petition link in the comments. Tomorrow, Renee and Racy Sherman from We Testify and Morgan Hopkins from All Above All. Also, Friday, 1 p.m., join us for the AAF virtual booth session. Everybody show your shirts. We got these shirts going on. You can blab with us. We'll talk about the petition and talk about our work and how we have done some really successful transitioning during COVID from on-the-ground activism to activating our bases on the ground to have them do some work and doing a lot of really cool virtual activism, which is really fun. Hey.